The sun rises on a humid Kentucky morning as a young mother of two arrives for her office job at the factory. But what would happen next should happen to no one.
She was murdered in her own office.
Michelle Mockbee was bludgeoned to death, covered with plastic wrapping.
He's laying there on the ground, covered up, and there's blood all over the floor in the office.
What's the alleged motive behind the violent death?
Your sister may have been onto it.
Yes.
Therefore, he has to get rid of your sister?
The jury says this man killed her.
Do you think the jury convicted the right man?
I absolutely do.
But did they?
I didn't do it.
Now, with fresh evidence
Did you have a sexual relationship with her?
and a sexual scandal staining the prosecution, a lot of people are asking,
Is he a killer or an innocent victim of blind justice?
Michelle Mockbee loved her job at Thermo Fisher Scientific. After all, she met her husband Dan there. A good mom with two adorable little girls and a loving big sister to Jennifer and Cindy.
What kind of gal was she?
My sister was not only my big sister, but she was my best friend, and she was a great role model to all of us.
She loved her children. She was a great mom.
What were Michelle's passions in life?
Her passions in life were her kids. She loved her kids. She would have done anything for them.
And it was for her children that Michelle found herself going to work very early one morning. Michelle worked in the HR department and oversaw payroll.
She arrived super early that day. It was the first day of the girls' summer vacation from school. So she was planning on getting payroll done early so she could go home, spend time with her family.
When she arrived at 5:53 a.m., she grabbed the time card so everyone would be paid. But she wasn't the only one in the office early that day. The janitor was there too.
Is he usually there at that time?
I'm not sure, I really don't know, but I know that she more than likely surprised him by coming up those steps that morning.
David Dooley and his wife Janet had the contract to clean the building.
What was David Dooley's connection to your sister?
I don't think they had ever really corresponded very much, but the two of them. She talked more with his wife, Janet. And they were very friendly at work. Janet even attended Michelle's baby shower that her coworkers had held for her.
About an hour after Michelle arrived at work, she was dead. Dooley and another employee found her body.
Michelle was on the floor outside of her office. Plastic was covering her head. Her hands were zip-tied.
Crime Watch Daily producer Rebecca Ware has been chasing details on the violent story.
There was blood spatter everywhere. It was a horrific crime scene.
Michelle have any enemies, any tension between other people that could lead to something so horrific?
No, Michelle never had any enemies.
No animosity between coworkers?
Not that I ever knew of.
Cops soon put Michelle's husband Dan under the microscope. He reportedly would receive $700,000 in life insurance from her untimely death.
Usually investigators initially will look into the husband, right?
Oh.
Especially when you're saying, oh, I can't think of anyone. She had no enemies.
So yeah, they had to look at him, they had to question him just to rule him out, and they immediately ruled him out. He took a polygraph test the next day, he passed. I think judging, by his reaction alone, they kind of knew there's no way this man could be responsible for this.
And cops also ruled out a little more than a dozen employees who were at the factory that morning, except for one.
We knew that they were kind of narrowing in on one person. They would never reveal who that person was, but this person had stuck out to them early on in the investigation, I think maybe within the first 48 hours.
You're talking about David Dooley?
Yes.
David Dooley, the janitor. He was reportedly seen on surveillance video leaving the facility at 6:31 a.m., right around the time investigators say the murder occurred.
He was the only person to leave that building. He told somebody that he ripped his pants. He came back with clean clothes on when he's a janitor. He told the detectives that he was checking on his wife, so his story changed several times.
Certainly eyebrow raising. He left his place of employment to go change right around the time that Michelle turns up dead.
Yes.
Prosecutors say Dooley failed to tell investigators he returned to work later that morning.
Prosecutors say his behavior was odd, and his story about where he was the morning of the murder was inconsistent. And it was those inconsistent statements that ultimately led police to zero in on him and charge him.
Dooley was charged with murder, kidnapping, and tampering with evidence. He pleaded not guilty to all charges.
Either my client is innocent or he is some pathological liar.
What could he possibly have to lie about?
What did your sister catch David Dooley doing?
I'm not sure that she caught him doing anything at that moment, but I think she was onto him stealing money basically from the company.
How would David Dooley, as a janitor, be stealing money from the company?
He was clocking himself in and his wife, who was not even there. So they were getting paid 3 times what they should have been paid.
And your sister may have been onto it.
Yes.
Therefore, he has to get rid of your sister?
Yes.
But that is only the sister's theory, and there is no proof that Dooley or his wife Janet committed any wrongdoing with the payroll. Janet remains convinced her husband is innocent.
I told all my friends and my family if I thought for 1 minute that Dave was guilty, I would not stand by him.
And a search of Dooley's apartment and garage apparently produced no evidence tying him to the crime.
Prosecutors believe Dooley went home that morning to dispose of the evidence, but in their search, detectives found nothing that would support that claim.
At the trial, the prosecutor Linda Talley-Smith admitted the case has flaws.
Prosecutors told the jury that there was no smoking gun, no eyewitnesses, no fingerprints, and so this was basically a circumstantial case, and prosecutors focused on Dooley's inconsistent statements.
But despite the lack of physical evidence, the jury convicted Dooley.
I don't know exactly how much time, but it took him a while to deliberate.
And when the guilty verdict was announced by the jury, what were you feeling?
We were relieved. The judge first read the kidnapping charge, and he was found not guilty of that. But then they read the murder charge and found him guilty, and we were just absolutely relieved that justice was finally served. Justice was served for Michelle.
Case closed? Not quite. Next, new evidence emerges.
Who is the mystery man caught on surveillance video?
And an embarrassing sex scandal.
I think it's any of your business.
You're under oath. This isn't gangland here.
Could all that add up to a new trial for David Dooley?
I am totally. Notice the difference between his words know and think. Just because you think you know something doesn't mean you're right.